Welcome to this grassy field in the middle of rural Maharashtra and a Mercedes G Wagen. Now I love these things, they're more than just an SUV, they're an entire occasion. Now you've got to understand that thus far in India, the G Wagen has only ever been sold in AMG guise, and that means a big, shouty, petrol-powered V8. They are absolutely epic. However, their price is equally epic, and they also come with epic running costs. So now Mercedes has introduced this for the first time in India, the G350D, a diesel-powered G-Wagon that promises to be just that little bit more sensible. But can a G-Wagon be sensible? Should a G-Wagon be sensible? Can you really have your cake and eat it too? Well, that's what I hope to find out today. Before we go any further, tell us what you think about the G350D in the comments below. Would you choose it or stretch your budget to get an AMG G63? Also, please do like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and click the bell icon to stay notified. Now it's important to remember what exactly the appeal of the G-Wagen is, especially to Indian customers in the first place. For most of them, it's the way this thing looks, and you got to admit this diesel version sticks really close to the formula that was set by the AMGs. The shape is pretty much the same, but of course there are a few differences. The grille on the front, it's the normal horizontal grille as opposed to the vertical slats you get on the AMG. The bumpers are a bit different, the wheels are a bit different, and for God's sakes, there are no side pipes. Okay, they are actually down there, they just don't stick out of the car. This looks like any old SUV. So very sensible. But the looks aren't the only thing people love about the G-Wagen. The other thing people want from their G-Class is off-road ability. Now I know what you're thinking. Who in their right mind, in India at least, would ever take their G-Wagen off-roading? Aha, well, they don't necessarily have to. But what they're buying into is the legacy of the G-Class. And of course, it is and always has been an incredible off-roader. So they want to be comfortable in the knowledge that their money is well spent and that their G-Class can take them wherever they ever dream of going. Say for instance now, I could have taken the road, but I have chosen instead to go across this rocky field just because I can. I don't even need to use all three of the differentials. I've just locked the center differential and put the car in low range, and well, it's sailing over everything. Also helping things is the 360-degree camera array that's showing me everything around. And this is but the tip of the iceberg of what the G-Wagen can do. And since there was no off-road proving ground to really test its true capabilities, I headed over to where most G-Wagons in India will spend their time. Some smooth, clean tarmac. To see if the G350D could possibly thrill in the same way a G63 can. Now of course, a very important part of the G63, just like with every other AMG, is the engine, and that is of course something you don't get here. In the place of the 4-litre twin-turbo hand-built V8 from a Falterbach, what you get is the straight-six 3-litre diesel from the S-Class, and yes, of course, it's BS6 compliant. So in place of that wonderful barking mad V8 engine note, what you get is very good refinement actually. Okay, this engine is not as quiet in this car as it is in the S-Class, understandably, but it's really rather impressive for a diesel engine. You will hear it a little bit sooner than you would in an S-Class as well, because of course this car is a lot heavier than that car, and this engine needs to work a little bit harder to get things going. When it does come alive, it actually doesn't sound all that bad. This new straight-six sounds a damn sight better than the old Mercedes V6 diesel. Let me just dial it up into sport mode to show you what I mean. Sounds pretty good, huh? And that brings me to the other thing that you missed from the AMG V8, and that is of course the performance. That car had 585 horsepower. This one has nearly 300 horsepower less at 286. But with a big heavy SUV like this, it's the other figure, the torque, that's almost equally important. While the AMG makes 850 Nm of torque, this one makes 600 Nm, which is still quite a lot. And it makes all 600 of those Newton meters at just 1200 RPM. But how does that feel? Well, while the AMG felt like a surprise sucker punch to the jaw every time you put your foot down, this one feels like more of a spirited nudge, if you know what I mean. But don't be fooled, the diesel G is no slouch. When we plugged it into our satellite-guided V-Box testing equipment, it recorded a 0 to 60 kph time of 3.33 seconds, a 0 to 100 kph time of 7.53 seconds, and kicked down overtaking times from 20 to 80 and 40 to 100 that were both comfortably under 6 seconds. So yeah, it's not quite as quick as the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 petrol version, but it certainly isn't slow. But here's the other thing. You tend to forgive the AMG G63 quite a few things because it's just so mad. It's a ludicrous car, it's a bit of a toy, and well, it does get away with a lot of small flaws. But because this G350D is the sensible version of the G-Class, I think that opens it up to a little bit more scrutiny. For instance, in this car, I don't mind pointing out that rear visibility is rather appalling thanks largely to that huge spare tire strapped onto the tailgate. Then there's more fundamental stuff like the ride quality. Sure, it rides a little bit better than the AMG thanks to it using smaller wheels, 20 inches versus 22 inches on that car. But it still has a very lumpy ride, especially at low speeds, thanks to its rigid rear axle. However, it has to be said that once you do pick up the pace, it absolutely demolishes potholes, speed breakers, just about anything that goes under the wheels. This car truly feels invincible. The other thing is, of course, this is no handler. You're not going to enjoy driving this around like you would some other luxury SUVs, so don't go expecting that at all. The trade-off is the high, tall, commanding seating position that lets you lord over everybody around you. And for most people, I think that commanding feeling will be enough to counter this car's lack of dynamic prowess. And yes, while fuel consumption isn't as ridiculously high as the AMG petrol V8, this diesel G Wagen is far from what you'd call efficient. We didn't do the full Autocar fuel test, but over our day of mixed driving, the car's own fuel computer showed single-digit kpl figures. It likely has something to do with this car's 2.5-ton curb weight. But hey, the huge size does at least mean it's spacious. It does have a very huge and useful boot. In fact, it's very practical and the loading lip is not too high either. What isn't so great is the back seat. You sit really high up, really upright, and though headroom is really great, legroom is simply not up to luxury SUV standards. The seat cushioning could have been better too, but then I guess this is one luxury SUV where the owner might actually be in the driver's seat. Do you see what I mean? When you take the G Wagen off its AMG pedestal, you have to judge it in the same way that you do other luxury SUVs. Now I gotta say, I love the way this cabin is trimmed. There's leather just about everywhere, beautiful brushed aluminium trim all over the place, the buttons feel really nice, and everything is screwed together just so solidly. But there is one thing to note. This car is full of G manufacture accessories. Now, G manufacture is the name of Mercedes' accessory catalog specifically for the G Wagen. Make no mistake, the G has a very luxurious interior as standard. But we feel that a lot of owners won't mind digging heavily into the catalog to make sure their car is like no one else's. It's also worth noting that though this car is equipped to the same level as the G63 we tested some time back, a lot more of the stuff on this car is optional. Again, the essentials are standard like LED headlamps, 8-color ambient lighting, a rear-view camera, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and even some connected car tech. But if you want stuff like the Burmester audio system, adaptive LED headlamps, 64 colors for your ambient lighting, seat heating, cooling and massage, and, oh yes, the sunroof, you'll have to pay extra. And here's the thing, At 1.5 crore rupees ex-showroom before those options, the G350D is still very expensive. Sure, a G63 may cost 50% more than this, but then this one in turn costs 50% more than a GLS. While usually buyers of luxury cars are happy to settle for a smaller engine if it means a more reasonable price, does that still apply when the price is north of 1.5 crore rupees? The diesel G Wagen then is a bit of an anomaly. You're certainly getting the best of both worlds, the rugged appeal of a G-Class, insane off-road ability included, in a package that's cheaper to buy and to run. Still, we suspect that most people who've decided to splurge on an indulgence like a G Wagen would be happy to go the whole hog and just get an AMG G63 instead.